Welcome to the show. I'm Claude Sharati. Thank you very much for those of you watching. Tonight, we're going to be talking about intimacy and relationship. It's obviously a very interesting and important topic that many of us would want to hear about because a lot of us are in relationships. They say relationships are very important in life. In fact, your net worth is linked to the relationships you have. And you start with perhaps the relationship you have with your um, spouse or fiance or girlfriend or boyfriend, and then it goes into relationship with other people. So this topic will be discussed with an expert in this matter in just a moment. Straight after this. Thank you very much. So we'll be talking about intimacy and relationship tonight. But before we get there, many of you who live in Melbourne may be aware of the tragic death of 5 young people who were involved in an accident on Thursday night. And yesterday we had a Vox Pops session where we got people to call and talk about this incident. And, there were a few people who called to express their condolences to the families and perhaps start some sort of reflection on how, as a community, we may avoid these things to happen. I also wanted to speak to the president of the Somali community because many of these young people who died are from a Somali background. There were actually 6 of them. 4 of them were from Somali background and 2 were from South Sudanese background. So I have got the president of the Somali community in Victoria who wanted to express his condolences through African Media Australia. And we're just going to play his piece so that you get to hear what he said. This is while we do that, we'll be showing some of the images of that very tragic accident, and the sound piece will come in just a moment.
I would like to thank you, Clyde, for having me tonight and say a few words through AMA program. My name is Farah Warsame, and I'm currently the chairperson of the Somali community in Victoria, a not-for-profit organization based in Melbourne. And as everybody knows, Thursday night at approximately 7:30 p.m., 6 young men were in tragic car accident in Truganina area. 2 young men passed away at the scene while another 3 sadly passed away in the hospital. This incident has truly shocked our community. Young life is taken too soon. On behalf of the Somali community in Victoria, I send my heartfelt prayers and condolences to the families of these young men. May Allah grant them sabr and strength. I would also like to wish the young man remaining in the hospital a speedy recovery. After a hard year and a half in the COVID-19 pandemic, this loss has really affected our young people's mental health and well-being. They are almost all of them are mourning the loss of their young brothers and processing, I can say, the tragedy. It has been a tough, really, few days for our communities here in Melbourne. And what I would also like to say is that our young people really need programs and support their well-being. It has been really a tough couple of years, as I said before, and this tragic incident has affected to our people here, specifically our African communities in Melbourne. The Somali community in Victoria would welcome if the government plan youth initiatives to help support our young people in any way. Before I finish, I would like to share that there's a GoFundMe page set up to collect donations to help cover the funeral costs. Any amount would be helpful. Please donate whatever you can. It's online on Facebook, and you can see there. So please donate. If you need the link, I can send it to you as a text, my brother Claudia. Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. Good night.
Thank you very much. That's Farah Warsame from the Somali community. As I said, it's obviously a very tragic event. There is a GoFundMe page where you can potentially contribute to help the families meet the need of the funeral cost as a result of this tragic event. All right. From one thing, we're going to another. As sad as that is, we need now to go to our regular program. And tonight, we are talking about intimacy. And to discuss this topic with me, I have Katinda Ndola. Katinda, how are you tonight?
I'm doing fabulous, but a little bit sad because of what the news we just received or just saw.
Absolutely. That is something very sad, but I guess there's not much that we can do other than sympathize with the families and hope that these tragic events do not get repeated, I suppose.
Yes. I mean, healing, we have to send them love and light.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do that. Okay, so we're talking about intimacy, but tell us a little bit more about yourself for those who may not necessarily be aware of who you are, that they know more about who you are, what you do, and a little bit more than that.
Okay, so I'm Katinda Ndola, founder of the Confidence and Self-Esteem Academy, and I'm wear a lot of hats. So today's hat is talking about intimacy, obviously, but I'm also a speaker. I'm an author of The Big Comeback, and I'm an educator. And in our academy, what we do is we inspire and educate people on life skills and taboo subjects such as intimacy, relationships, and sex, which are some of the subjects or topics that a lot of parents and schools don't actually teach you. So we call it life skills, and we teach all those subjects because it's easier for us to do that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Intimacy, obviously, for many of us who are married or in relationship, it's a very important thing. And I suppose we're going to try to actually define first, what is it when you talk about intimacy? Are we talking about just sex, or there's more to it?
Wow. This is just amazing. I love these questions because I find a lot of people are conflicted with that word intimacy. So really, before I even define what intimacy, this is a fundamental pillar of human relationships. And I like to call it intimacy. What do you see when you look at me? What do I see when I look at me? Which means intimacy is not only with others, it's also with yourself. Because we know for sure the first and most important relationship starts with yourself. It's never with other people. So in defining what is intimacy is defined as a close familiarity or friendship. It means deeply knowing another person and deeply being known as well. And it seems like a lot of people, when they hear intimacy, they think about romantic relationships. Intimacy is not always about romantic relationships. It's about intimacy with everybody. It could be intimacy with your children, intimacy with your friends, intimacy with your colleagues. So intimacy is it's a word. It's all about being together and being close to people. So it's never necessarily a thing about partners, and it's not about sex either. And the interesting thing, Clyde, before I know you want to ask me the next question, I find many of my students who take the intimacy program believe that intimacy means the physical act of sex. And sex is not intimacy. It can enhance intimacy, but most of us are trying to screw each other to get it.
Well, that's quite a mouthful, and I suppose there is a lot that can come from there. Well, why is intimacy important?
Whoa. Why is it important? Whoa. Where do I begin? So we all know that humans are social creatures and we thrive on close relationships with others. And I know this time, especially during COVID, maybe it's been a bit tougher for a lot of people who don't live with family or friends, but people who live together can see the benefit of intimacy right now because they are at home together. spending more time getting to know each other more. So really, intimacy is essential for forming connections with others that are deep, lasting, and healthy. And we are first taught intimacy as babies. When our parents hold us and give us affection, love, and care for us. They do say that if babies don't get intimacy when they're little, they can actually die. So from there, once you start to grow up, what happens? You develop intimate relationships with others, with siblings, with schoolmates, with workmates, with friends. And obviously, while all this is happening, you're offering them your vulnerabilities in order to build trust. And so to get to the real point, why is intimacy really important? Intimacy is your life. There is nothing else. Intimacy is the most important thing. And you know why? Because to be intimate with somebody is to see them, to feel them, to hear them, to understand them. And most importantly, is to take them in and to give yourself to them. And this does not include, obviously, just romantic partners. This includes everybody. Because for you to gain trust from anybody, you have to have a close relationship, a close bond with them, for them to trust you and for them to feel comfortable with you. Yeah, so I believe intimacy is life. And the other good thing about it, another good thing, intimacy does heal. It heals because it's good for your well-being, your health. And that means people who've got better intimacy, who've got more people around them, obviously have better life because, they're more happier. It reduces blood pressure, it decreases stress, and also it builds your immune system.
Okay. Well, that's very well said. I suppose when we talk about intimacy, we talk about connections at different levels between two people. What are some of the tips you can give to help people to develop more intimacy in their relationship, where obviously that is applicable and necessary?
Well, communication is key. I think we find a lot of relationships suffer because people don't communicate clearly. There's always a lot of misunderstandings. That's why we have a lot of fights. We have a lot of angry families. We have angry people just because people don't know how to clearly communicate. So I would really say there's like 3 things I think I can just give as tips as we start this conversation. And it's the thing is, when you're communicating, also be willing to listen. Hear the other person. So it's not just about you talking, it's also about hearing them. What is it they're not saying? What is the body language telling you? What is something you need to pay attention to? But also you have to be listening to them without judgment, because the problem with most of us, we'll listen to respond. We don't listen to hear and understand the other person. Now, the other key thing I would really like to really bring to your attention if you're watching this is very critical for any sort of relationship. It doesn't only have to be romantic or husband wife, but it's all sorts of relationships, of course. So especially when you're married, we'll apply this in this case. When you're married or when you're in a relationship, when you have conflict, this is critical. Put all your energy in solving the problem. Don't try to point fingers and blame each other, because if you do that, that will take you nowhere. So you should just really focus on how can you solve the problem, and just focus on the problem and not the two of you. Because whatever is the problem is outside of the two of you. So just focus on the problem and find solutions for the problem. That is a really key thing. And the other thing is self-awareness. I find when we're struggling with self-esteem issues, when we don't like ourselves, we start to create a lot of problems for ourselves. And obviously, if we don't love ourselves and we're not happy with ourselves, we're not going to make anybody else happy. We'll cause chaos the whole time. So really, self-awareness is key as well.
Absolutely. I imagine, obviously, as I said earlier, there are different aspects and different levels of or dimensions that go into intimacy. And there are a lot of things nowadays with the lifestyle that we are living that I suppose are sort of intruding on a relationship, making things a little harder. For example, if you want to connect with someone, you have to have time for that person. You can't connect without time. But then we're becoming so time poor. We don't spend much. We may have big houses, much luxurious and nice, but we don't seem to live in them, except now that we are locked in them.
We're always working.
And right
Oh,
now,
dear.
I guess that's one of the best sort of side effect of the, if I would call it like that, or positive effect of the lockdown, is we
COVID.
get to
Yes.
spend more time with our partners and with our children and all our relationships. But when we go back to normal, so to speak, we don't have much time. Everybody, in the morning, the husband goes to work, the wife goes to work. You don't know when they come back. Maybe they have a double shift and all that. By the time you come, so what would you advise people in sort of that time investment that is needed to nurture and develop a relationship with intimacy?
Well, let's just talk what you just said, Clyde. You're talking about right now in lockdown. So it seems like we're all together at home. There is no choice about that. We're at home. But what I feel, and this is just my experience based on a lot of people I speak to, family and friends, I think a lot of people, husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, families, kids, everybody, people don't really know each other. I think this time, COVID time, was a good time to reset and sit together and get to talk to each other. And especially couples, like talk about things like find out more about your spouse or your partner. What is it about them? How did they grow up? What did they go through? What are some things that maybe made them who they are today? Because I feel people just meet as adults and they court, they date, they get married, and life goes on. And then
Mm.
when they start having issues, nobody goes backwards to find out, hang on a minute, why is this person like this? What sort of
Mm-hmm.
trauma did they maybe undergo as a child? What
Yes.
is it that they're going through even now that they haven't healed from? Sometimes you don't even know what it is you're going through. But I
Yes.
believe this was a good time for people listening. Even now, we still have time because we're still in lockdown. If you haven't tried that, just sit down, make some quality time, maybe even just once a week if it's too much, even every day if it's possible, maybe 5 minutes every day. Just find out from each other, what is it I can do to make your life better? Or what is it we can do as a couple to grow healthier and in a better way? Because there's a lot of things, and I think it's just conversation.
Mm.
Conversation. Yeah.
Well, a lot of things start with conversation. Even nations are birthed out of conversations. So when you in a relationship, conversation is important. But then again, people sometimes may even actually have time together. But I guess there's more. There's a need for more than just time. You got to pay attention to the person that you are connected to, or you are in a relationship with, so that you know what sticks them, what turns them on and off, what bothers them. So and this is like a job of a psychologist, and you're trying to go deeper to dig into people's psyche and be able to at every moment understand what's happening in order to respond. Do you think that we actually nowadays, because of all these things that we have to deal with, it's becoming a more difficult job for people to really understand each other, connect with each other, and hence why we're having some of these issues with divorce and everything? Is that possibly, is that an accurate description of things?
Well, that's possible, but I feel we are responsible as adults. We've got a good age of reasoning. We can decide what's good for us. Sometimes I feel we're so overwhelmed with everything. We've got a conflict at home, we've got work, maybe you've got a boss who's giving you a headache, you've got kids who are teenagers. There's so much going on. But I
Mm-hmm.
think we just need to sort of just pause, because I think what's happening before COVID, we were all just always in a rush. We were always busy. I don't know. We
Mm.
were busy being busy, but I don't think we were busy being productive. We were just busy being busy. And I think a
Yes.
lot of it was escape. We're escaping from what we're going through, or what's going on in our lives. But I believe right now is a good time for people to just pause, no matter what's going on, even if it's stressful, just pause and just stay quiet for a little while so that you're able to think and recollect yourself and align yourself back. Because what I'm thinking is a lot of people just react to things, they don't respond. So, which means they don't think it through. Then they say something they shouldn't have said, they regret it, and
Mm.
it's not worth it. So, I think it's just people need to just pause and just take it easy and let things be, because it's easy to do that if you want to.
Absolutely. Let me remind those watching that you're watching African Knowledge here at Africa Media Australia. And tonight I have Katinda Ndola, who is an expert in self-confidence and relationship. And we're talking about intimacy and healthy relationship. Would encourage you to make a comment, ask questions. You can even actually call and ask your question via telephone if you like. Just give us a call on the number that is appearing on the screen, and we'll see if we can give you some time to ask your questions or get your comment. Katinda, now, why do you think there are so many relationship issues these days? As I said just a few minutes ago, there are obviously a lot more divorces that we can see that compared to previous years. It keeps getting worse and worse. What do you think is the issue? Are people just having difficulty building healthy relationships?
Clyde, my belief system, and based on what I know, what I've seen, experienced as well as a person who's also been through all this, we're all going through emotional scars from past relationships, from current relationships. I think it's knowledge. In the olden times, there used to be that one auntie who used to talk to you as kids about relationships, what to do, how to behave, if you're girls or boys. There was always somebody who gave you that kind of knowledge. In today's world, especially here in Australia today, we don't have that. Our parents, everybody's busy working. So we rely on the school system, for example, to teach the children sex education, which is whenever they do it. That's not enough. And we're not doing it at home because maybe it's taboo subjects. We can't talk to our kids like that. We don't even know how, because also we are also students of the same issue. And I think a lot of it is lack of knowledge. So if people can start getting educated on intimacy, on relationships, on marriage, what to expect, what happens, why people do what they do, they'll be better equipped to walk into a relationship. Because also the thing is when people get together, what questions are they asking each other? Because are they getting together because they're desperate? Are they getting together because they're broke? Are they getting together because they've got lack of self-esteem and they need somebody to lift them up? What is the thing? Because if you come to a relationship when you've got a lot of baggage, you're bound to have issues, because you might also meet somebody else with baggage, which means you're two people who need a lot of healing and you're getting together. So what does that do? That's recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And another thing I recommend people to really go for therapy. I think there's this stigma about therapy. You don't have to have mental health or to be anything. You don't have to be sick. Therapy is like everything. Like we have every year, for example, a lot of people, me included, we do this thing where you do once a year, you get your full medical checkup. We don't do that because we're sick. We just do it because it's health maintenance. It's like a car. You take your car for service to just make sure that it runs okay. You don't wait until it breaks down. So our body, our mind and soul is the same thing. We need to go somewhere to speak to someone. If we can't speak to someone, we have to find a way to learn how to cope with these things. Because I believe if you get into a relationship when you're hurting, when you're broke, when you're desperate, when you've got so many things going on, yours is it's only a matter of time before it explodes. It's not going to be a good thing. So I believe people need to really talk to a therapist, look for a relationship coach if you have to, really find that auntie. If you know there's an auntie you can talk to if you're afraid to go for therapy or afraid to speak to coaches. You can also do our programs. The reason actually I do the programs, so people who are shy don't have to talk to me. I don't have to talk to my team. So they just go anonymous, they do the program, nobody knows what's going on, but it teaches you the step-by-step, especially the one program we teach about dating. Step-by-step from day one. So you're not jumping from one space to another. So there's 12 stages. So you go from stage one, all in stages. Because once you skip one, you're bound to have problems, because that means you're not communicating, you're not getting to know the other person very well. They don't really know who you are. So you're all like two people who don't really know each other getting together and getting married and having children. And then what? Later we go, oh, they're having a divorce. What happened? Everybody gets surprised. How can everybody get surprised when nobody's educating anyone about relationships? So that's what I believe. People are failing because nobody is teaching them. And they actually don't also know where to go. That's the other thing. Who do they turn to when they need this knowledge?
Okay. Do you also think that there's sort of a lack of awareness? Because this sort of thing needs to be addressed before the problem arises, or as soon as you start seeing signs of a rift between two relationships. But often people leave things too early, isn't it? And where it becomes quite hard to repair the damage.
You know what I said? The devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Sometimes people think the grass is greener on the other side. That's never the case, because you know what? The problem is never the other person. The problem is yourself. So over the years, I used to think, I get into a relationship, things don't work out. You always point fingers. It's the other person who did this, he did this. No, 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 no. We have to take responsibility. What part did you play in making that relationship not work? So again, it goes back to self-awareness. You have to work on yourself. You have to build your self-esteem. You have to build your confidence. You have to know who you are. What is it about you? Do you love yourself enough to love somebody else? Because there's no way, Clyde, really, and the whole thing is, we say self-love is not selfish. I cannot love somebody else or love the world or love anybody if I don't love myself. So if I love myself, which means that I demonstrate to the world what love looks like. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. That's a question I get a lot. How do you love yourself? Is that even a thing? Yes, it is a thing. Because if you learn the dynamics of it, you'll be a happier human being. You'll be a nicer person to be around. And people just gravitate towards you, and you'll always vibrate in that frequency where you attract people on the same vibe. So you don't attract troublemakers and people who've got a lot of issues that they need to still deal with. But also the other thing is, I believe, Clyde, people should not get together, especially when assuming they break up from a relationship. That's another thing we see a lot. You break up from one relationship, jumping into another one. There is no way that is going to be successful, because you need time on your own to heal. You need to heal. And healing means so many things. Yeah, you need to heal. And we see that. I know a lot of people who do that. You from here to there, and then they wonder, why does it not work? You're just taking baggage everywhere. And what I say, don't let your next pay for your ex, because that's what happens.
Your next will pay for your ex. That's
correct. That's correct.
That's a very good way to put it. If you have unfinished business with your ex, the bill will go to the next.
That's correct. Somebody's going to pay the price.
Okay. Now, I suppose more than people learning to love themselves, they also need to know themselves. Because I think whether you talk about, big or, huge, how do I put it, very great philosophers or spiritual masters, they encourage people to know themselves, and a lot of people don't sufficiently know themselves to be able to, develop that sort of emotional intelligence and understanding what is going within themselves, so that they don't put it on others, because that's what would set fire in a relationship, when you have unresolved issues and you're trying to blame the other person and you see things that are not necessarily there. Do you agree?
Of course. Now, the thing with Clyde, again, we're going back to self-awareness, knowledge, self-knowledge. Are people willing? You see, this is where it's really tricky. Are people willing to give themselves permission to grow, to be a better human being, to be better than what they were yesterday? Do they have a way to analyze themselves? And I find, like, what I say is, like, every day, if you have the time, because most people don't, maybe do a weekly journal. Write how you feel. Just how do you spend your day, and what is your mood? What are you feeling? What's going on with you? If you're upset with somebody, what happened? Why did that? What was it a trigger? Maybe it's something you need to look into. But a lot of people are in denial. People cannot actually look in the mirror and confront themselves. They're afraid of themselves because they know there's a lot of work they need to do. And that's the starting point. If you can't do that, you never, ever have a life that's happy and fulfilled. You'll always have challenges that always come one after another, because self-awareness is key to being out in the world as a human being who can actually help yourself and help other people.
All right, now let's talk about the cultural clash, because some of us, obviously, we come from Africa. We have, a set of expectations and understanding of what the relationship, how relationships are supposed to work, especially between spouses, wife and husband. Then you get here, it's a totally different ball of game. Expectations change. The environment is different. The media is projecting a whole lot of stuff that are not always necessarily useful for a relationship. And before you know it, bang, it's fire. How do you assist people in managing that cultural change that comes when people migrate from one area to another?
Well, the first thing I like to say, especially when it comes to us African people, I feel sad for our African men, because it's really tough being a Black man in this world. And it's harder when you live in a place where you're a minority, because everything is on you. You're the head of the house, you're you're everything. So there's so much pressure on our men And obviously, when they come here, the pressure gets multiplied because now they're expected to share the chores in the house. Because if you're working and I'm working, I mean, I can't do everything. I'm tired too. So it gets really hard. And what I think with a lot of people need to do again is sit down and analyze what is best for their family. Because this has got nothing to do with the world now. You're going to worry about yourselves at home. How are you going to try to grow together in this environment? What can you do? What are some steps? Again, we go back to communication. You can't, and especially you can't be upset with the world and come home and take it out on your wife or take it out on your husband, because you got each other and you need to work together, because really that's all you got. If you work together, you'll make it happen. And just obviously finding ways to, I do this thing where I say like every week for people to have like a tete-a-tete, where they have maybe 15 minutes every week without fail, where they sit down and analyze their week. What are some things they were not happy about with each other? What can they do about it? And this is not a judgment call where you're going to point fingers and start getting angry. This is so that you can help each other grow in a healthy way without conflict all the time. And when you sit and understand each other, again, we go back to intimacy. What's intimacy? It's intimacy. I see you, you see me. I feel you, you feel me. I understand you, you understand me. So sit down, sort those things that annoy you. And especially we women, sometimes we don't, you come home, we're upset, whatever it is. It could be you, could be not you, but you have no clue. But you're not a rocket scientist to figure out what is wrong with me if I don't talk to you. But if I talk to you with accusation, you did this, you did that, it's going to cause fire. So the best thing I feel is to approach it like going, when you did that kind of thing, it didn't make me very happy. Then you start a conversation without accusation, because then it's easier for the other person to sort of go, oh, what is it exactly I did? And you talk without raising your voice. You don't need to be upset. Just be, normal, so that you can fix this and move to the next thing. I think that's really key.
Yeah, but then the fact that there are lots of different expectations from Africa to the West, or to this side of the world, and the fact that we can't really fully, I suppose, disassociate ourselves from our roots with the culture and the expectations that we grew with. Then at some point, that creates a tension that many people are not always able to address sufficiently, or at least properly. What are some of the things? Obviously, I understand people need to sit. You spoke about people having that tete-a-tete and working things through, but there's a lot of pressure in the environment that continues to push things to perhaps a direction where the couple doesn't want to go. How do you handle all of these sort of things? What would you suggest?
So you're talking about like pressure from Africa as well while being here?
That's one, as well as the expectations here in the like the relationship between men and women, husband and wife in Australia don't have the same sort of framework in terms of expectations that we would have back in Africa. Here, my wife and I always chatting. We always sort of pushing the ball to each other. You're doing this, this is African behavior, and say, no, this is this is Australian behavior, and all that sort of thing. So all that sort of confusion comes into, because 1 minute you're accused of being too African, and the other is like, oh, you don't I suppose integrate sufficiently, and you should follow the norms here. So it's just a whole lot of things going into the equation.
Clyde, it's interesting you say that, because one thing I know for sure, especially we're living here as African people, back at home, you have the support system. There's everybody around. But once you're here, you expect too much from each other, because you're the village now. You're everything. You're the lover, you're the husband, you're the worker, you're the auntie, you're the uncle, you're everything, which the pressure is so much. But what I think really is to sort of just sit and see what works for you, because you can't force things. If you still got African values, which are quite good, there's nothing wrong with that. But I guess when you're saying sometimes you behave more African, sometimes she wants you to be this, as women, sometimes we are hard to please. So that's another one I'm just going to say. Sometimes
Yes.
we want you to be a thug. Sometimes we want you to be the nice guy. So it depends what mood we feel like. Today, I feel like I want my man to be a thug. Okay, I want him to be a man, to be a kind guy. But sometimes I want him this. You don't know what I want unless you speak with me, unless
Yeah.
I said. But I feel there's a lot of pressure on the men more so than the women, because the man becomes the village. He becomes everything to the woman, especially if you're isolated and you don't have a lot of family here. But what I would suggest is really, again, let's go back to the drawing board, keeping that communication channel open and communicating with people back home just to keep that sanity, because you don't want to be everything you can't be everything for your wife and she can't be everything for you. That's
Yeah.
impossible. You still need to make friendships out of that, even here, so that you're able to have your boy times, she's able to have her girl time, so they can balance those things, because you can't be, it's too much. It's too
Yeah,
much.
and I remember I was having a conversation with a friend who was saying he was having issue with his wife, and just because he told his wife that she shouldn't expect him to make her happy. She should be happy by herself first. Which, when you analyze, in one way it makes sense. In another, African understanding, hey man, it's not quite. I expect you to, make me happy as well,
Yeah.
and that's created a whole sort of, that's communication, because it's on a different level. It can also create problems.
No, but Clyde, that about making happy, I think let's just be real with what it is. In Africa, maybe there's certain things which are concealed and we don't think about. When you
Yeah,
think about it, nobody can make you happy. You have to, happiness comes from within. So you have to create your own happiness first. So if I meet you, you enhance my happiness, which means there is a me before you and there's a me after you. So it's not because of you I might be happy. I'll be happy because you make it better. But I'm still happy because I know how to make me happy. And this is where we get confused. It's like that self-love thing. People cannot show you love if you don't know how to love yourself. Because really, how do they know what you want when you don't know what you want yourself? It's not possible. It's everything
mm,
starts from within, and we have to really get clear with that. I know even in the Bible, a lot of these things are said, but you have to start with yourself. Happiness is from within. And then if you find people who can enhance that and add that to you, so be it. If they don't, you're still okay.
oh, let me
You're
ask
still
you a
okay.
very provocative question.
Yes, go for it.
When you look at all these relationship issues and divorce happening, family breaking up, who do you think is mostly to blame? Do you think women are the most to blame, or men, or is there anything else?
When I did know better, as a woman, I pointed fingers at the man. I know better.
Okay.
It takes two to tango. How did each one contribute to what has happened? It's not one-sided, because we tend to feel, especially when you talk about family violence too, we go to that same thing of majority of the women get the raw end of the stick. That's fine. Yes, it does happen. But how do you contribute to what actually happens? Because
Mm,
you're a participant in it too. So we
yeah.
can't always point fingers. I know there's this thing, oh, he did it. So, and then you tell my girlfriend, then we think no, no, no. I think we're both to blame, and we need to take responsibility for how we contributed to the downfall of our relationship. Because we were just the two of us when we met. So why can't we make it work? So it's between the two of us. We know better.
Absolutely. And then I suppose when things start going wrong, there's this thing about everyone is trying to punish the other, and that sort of cycle of punishment just
I know it.
just snowballs into something uncontrollable. Do you agree with that?
Oh, we've all done it. I've done it. I'm not going to even pretend this is not true. This is something we all do. Because I think when a relationship comes to an end, depending who feels, I guess who left who. If you're the one who left, maybe you feel a bit better. But if you're the one who got left,
Yeah,
or rejected is a word, because that's the word, rejected,
yeah,
you're gonna think of revenge. What are you gonna do to make life harder for the other person? I think that is just a cycle of mourning the
yeah,
relationship. And I think we just have to agree we are human, and we're only human. And I've gone through it, and I've been through it, and I've done that too. But then later realized I was equally to blame for whatever happened. So then when you come to the realization that you were part of the problem, you step back and you let things be, because you're like, oh, okay.
absolutely. All right. Again, let me remind those watching, we do appreciate you staying and watching. Please just make a quick comment where you're watching from, so we know where you are from, and at least we know that you are watching. And then if you have a question or a comment, you can write that down, or if you want to call and say that over the phone, that's also possible. We would appreciate if you can do that. I've got a few comments, and let me just go with John, who says, interesting topic this evening. And Andy says, I also think relationship or marriage counseling should be instituted not only in churches, but also in communities. And that's from Andy, who's watching, by the way, from South Africa. Wow, that's
Nice.
very encouraging. It's a small world. Thank you very much, all the way from South Africa, Johannesburg. Or tell us the city you're watching from. Go ahead, Katinda.
Yeah,
What do
I
you
guess.
think relationship should be? Counseling should be instituted beyond churches.
Yes, yes. It should be. I mean, seriously, like in our communities right now, we should have somebody who is there to guide people, whether you're married, whether you're trying to get married, doesn't matter. It doesn't have to only be counselors. It can be coaches, could be the older people who have experience, who know how to handle these situations. We've got different communities. So there's obviously someone in the community, in each community, that has this knowledge, that can be a really good person to go to. But again, the fear again is people in our communities, we worry about people knowing what we're going through. It goes back like almost mental health. It's a stigma. So if you're having a relationship breakdown or something's going on, very rarely do people tell anyone until it's too late. So I think maybe we can start, it's a knowledge thing, educating from young. We don't have to wait until people are older. So before even young people get married, all those kind of places, there should be the information to make them feel free that, oh, you're thinking, oh, you're dating somebody. Oh, what is he like? Or what is she like? And, you get to ask the questions that are really critical. And if you don't know what you're looking for and how to look for it, you get the people who know to help you with that. Because I always say there's 5 critical questions that man and woman, doesn't matter, when you're dating, you need to ask. And one of the ones I like to really ask is, especially when I'm a girl asking a boy or asking a male, what are your short-term goals? Because you want to see if the man has direction, because we're relying on you as a man to be the head of the house, to be the man of the house. So we want to see what's your direction, right? So it's what's your short-term goals? And then the second question will be, what are your long-term goals? And then gives the woman, and this is both ways, but at this point, I'm just talking about a woman asking a man, right?
Yeah.
And then the third one is critical. What type of relationship do you have with your mother?
Why is that important?
Because if a man doesn't have a good relationship with his mother, what are the chances he will not have a good relationship with you? So that means maybe, not everybody, but maybe he doesn't respect women. Maybe he looks at women like nothing. There's a lot of all this dynamics. And I'm not saying it's everybody who has a bad relationship, their mother will be like that. But that is a good thing to ask, so that and then as a woman asking that question, you need to dig deeper. Why does he say what he says? So it's not about you just assuming, oh, he doesn't talk to his mother. I don't know. No. Just dig deeper. It could be something more deeper. And the next one is father. You're going to find out about the father too. What type of relationship did they have? Do they still have a relationship? Because as a man, you get your direction from your father.
That's
and
right.
If you grow without a father, definitely you will need a role model to fill that gap, because then you'll be lost.
Because I suppose our first relationships in lives, relationship we have with our mother and our fathers, even before we talk about siblings, and to know what sort of relationship one has with their parent can actually tell a lot about how they, because it's that sort of pattern of relationship that goes from the childhood into the adulthood. Because I think they say that the child is the father of the man. The man comes from the child. What you were conditioned with from your childhood is likely to affect you in your manhood the same way, or in your womanhood or adulthood. So that's actually very important. Before we go on, let's acknowledge. Andy says he's from South Africa, Pretoria. That's good. Candy is watching from Melbourne. Beata from Melbourne as well. That's pretty good. If you're watching, we want you to say where you're watching from. Jued Mazi says, very important topic, and communication is definitely key. Thank you for this topic. Thank you very much for your comment. We appreciate that. If you have any question, feel free to ask it. Now, as we're sort of getting close to the end of the show, let's talk about how we enhance our relationship, starting from intimacy, which is one aspect of the relationship, and everything else that goes with that, because there's a whole lot more. It's a whole layer of things that different layers of things that go into healthy relationship. So let's put our solutions hat now in the context of African mindset specifically. What would you start advising couples or people in a relationship? What do they need to do to develop, to nurture the relationship so that they have minimal issues and they can enjoy a wonderful relationship for many years, if not for the whole life?
Okay, so Clyde, I think let's go back again to self-awareness. So people need to start working on themselves, because at the end of the day, if you're already in a relationship, everybody has conflict. It's healthy to have conflict in a relationship because that's just life. But I think people need to come up with a way to do, maybe like there's one thing I always suggest, maybe every 3 months, you sit down this is actually as a family, because again, it's the family, husband, wife, but with kids as well. You sit down and write down what are some things you don't like about the other person. Now, this is a very tough one, but you have to have an open mind doing this. It's not a judgment call. This is a way to help each other grow in the family. So even you get children to write in a piece of paper, what is it you don't like, or something that somebody does that upsets you? And you write it down. And then once you do that, you analyze and see how you can get answers to those problems. So let's say, for example, a kid will say, oh, mom, children are crazy. They will say things like, oh, you always stop me from playing the iPad all the time. And most times as a parent, you just take the iPad away from them, but you don't explain to the children why you do that. So it's a question of giving them step by step. Why did you do that? What is it they did? What else could they do better? How else can they communicate that need? But again, it comes back to the two people, husband and wife. What is it I'm doing that drives you crazy and you don't like it? Because you don't see your blind spot. Somebody else has to see it and point it out. And really just be open-minded, because you're learning. It's a lesson, you're growing, and this is how you grow together in a relationship and make sure things are good. Now, the other thing I can also suggest is really working on the self-awareness, working on yourself. There's a lot of exercises around that. I mean, it's a lot of questions, which I can actually, after the show, Clyde, I'll get a thing where people can download just self-awareness questions where they can ask themselves these questions and work on them. They're a little bit tough because it's you. And sometimes I always say, look in the mirror, ask yourself that question. Because you know you better than anyone else. No one knows you like you know you. So self-awareness is critical moving forward, definitely.
And I suppose the more people do that work of self-awareness and understanding not just themselves, but their partner in a deeper way, the time they take and the time they invest in having those open and honest conversations when there is no problem, just looking at what is working well, what is not working, and what one person wants more than they have not received so far, and all that sort of thing. That investment pays off long term, doesn't it?
And there's just one thing too, like I know in African culture, we've got taboos, things that we don't do. The magic of touch. It doesn't have to be anything serious. It can be just holding hands. It's very critical to connect with your partner. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. There's one I call the soul gazing, where you can actually sit for 5 minutes and just don't say anything, just hold each other, or even sit there, face to face, just looking at each other. No questions asked, just connecting, because, that's a very powerful tool for people to love each other deeper and to get to know each other deeper. And then obviously there's a lot of emotions with that. If you've never done it, the first time I did it, I couldn't do it. It was just like looking in the mirror and seeing the person in the mirror. It's a very tough exercise, but it's worth it. So if anybody can try that 5 minutes, you start with 30 seconds. 5 minutes is too long, but once you become a practitioner of this and you've done it a few times, you'll really start enjoying it. And also hugging. I know in African contexts, the younger people are doing it. We don't connect. It's actually, they say 20 seconds of a hug is very healthy, and especially for the woman. It keeps her happy. For those men who want to have a trick of how to keep a woman happy, just hug her. Even if you never do that, just try it, because it's bonding. It's connecting. We feel loved when our man holds us tight. Like we feel protected.
Mm.
It's really, really key to just connect all the time. Because the thing
And
is, why we have conflict, we're always disconnecting. Find ways to connect without doing anything.
without doing anything. That's all good. And I if you get what I'm saying.
Oh my God.
uh, and that brings me to one thing where I suppose whether it's myself or my friends that I know, a lot of us are being told by our women we're not romantic enough. Is that a thing for African men? And is it cultural or is it just a habit sort of thing? Or what do you think it comes from?
You know what? I think we have to move with the times. We're not in the traditional setup anymore. So if your woman is saying they need you to be a bit romantic, give it a try because, really at the end of the day, a happy wife, a happy home.
Mm-hmm. For
So
sure.
I think if you're still holding on to your cultural thing where you think, oh, men don't do this or men don't do that, well, that's not going to work for you in today's world. The generations have changed and things have changed. Women want certain things. And if your woman is actually telling you, that's a blessing because then you have to work around and figure out, okay, you can even ask her, what do you want me to do for you to be happy? You don't have to guess it. Don't even, as a man, don't even try the guesswork. Just ask the question, what is it I can do for you today that will make you happy or that will
Sure.
show
And
you
then
that I love you?
then the issue is, for example, when you bring flowers, I'm going to say, "Why do you bring me flower?"
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, don't do the guesswork. Ask the person, ask your wife, what is it I
Uh,
can do for you today that will make you happy? She will tell you. Women, we talk. She will say, well, you've never bought me flowers. Then you go get flowers because she told you that. But don't go buy something because you think that's what you're supposed to do. Because if it backfires, guess what? You're just going to be miserable and she's going to be miserable. So ask the
yeah,
question, what can I do for you to make you happy or to show you more love? It's really that simple.
absolutely. Yeah, and I'll tell you a joke with a friend of mine whose wife was talking about you never even bring me flowers and stuff. So he went ahead and
You bought flowers, yes?
and now he bought seeds and he planted flowers in his garden. He said, if you want flowers, just
Just pluck them.
just collect them from from the garden.
No,
It's easy. I mean,
no, that's not showing love. Well, I know love is shown in different
uh,
ways, but no, just ask the question. Don't guess anything.
absolutely. Ask the questions, find out what the person wants, and try to please the person, even though sometimes, and I know a lot of men, when you see some of their comments on Facebook and stuff, so African women don't, the flower thing is for, white women. We like cash, and I'm saying, okay, so you need to give cash when you can. Actually, first of all, can you comment on that because I see a lot of comments of that type where the African woman says, the flower thing, keep it for let the white people do that. Bring me hard cash. What's your comment on that?
No, but it's true. Let's just go back to reality. Don't give me something I don't want or I don't love, because then it doesn't. You know what they talk about, the 5 languages of love. I don't know whether you've heard about that
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that.
by Gary Chapman. Yeah, it's these 5 languages of love, and it really makes sense. So if your woman likes gifts, but then don't do something stupid and buy flowers or do something because you see it in the movies. Because sometimes I find people see things in the movies and think that's a real thing, and then you copy that.
Mhm.
No, you've got your woman, she's unique to you. So ask the question, what can I do today to make you happy? Or what is it I
Mm.
can do to show you love? Let her tell you. Don't do it. I
All
mean,
right.
seriously, don't do
Maybe
it.
one more thing before we finish, and I guess this is what part of what Jude Murray has just commented. He said, I think also as parents we need to be very aware of what behaviors we are modeling for our kids because they are watching and learning more than they hear what you are saying. Let's walk the talk. I suppose this is what we connect with what we're saying earlier, in a sense that obviously as children we see things from our parents, and these things stay in our psyche for very long, and we tend to reproduce these things when we become adults. So what we are doing now in our relationship is not just for us as husband and wife. We're also modeling for our children and trying to show them what healthy relationships are all about, isn't it? That's a very important thing, isn't it?
Monkey do, monkey see. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very nice. Okay. Well, I'm sure there's a lot more things to talk about this topic, but unfortunately, we're kind of running out of time. I will try to organize another opportunity in the future. I think there'll be a lot of interest once people start watching a bit more of this, in because the relationships are quite crucial for healthy families, for healthy communities, and healthy nations. If people have a lot of issues in their families, eventually that also goes into the communities and the nation. So it's important to develop healthy relationship, and that is actually something that we need to do in our communities. There's an increase of divorce rate and family dislocations in our communities. We kind of learning the bad habits that we see in some of these societies, including even, and I know, for example, in the US, the Black community has a very, very huge problem where a lot of families are dislocated, and many families have a single mother raising children, and fathers are not there, and all that sort of thing. This has huge consequences. Therefore, it's important to study some of these things to see how we can improve our relationships and improve our community. So, Katinda Ndola, thank you very much for your time tonight. We know that you're a busy woman with a lot of things, but we appreciate
Clyde,
your time
I
coming
need to
onto the
say just
platform.
one sentence.
Yeah.
I just want to remind people that the quality of your relationships determines the quality of your life. So the quality of your relationships determine the quality of your life. So if you're in a situation where it's not healthy and it's not happy, it's what your life is going to be. It's going to be miserable and happy. So just pay attention to that.
Absolutely. All right. That's that very nice way of ending the show. Thank you very much, Katinda, and we will try to get you on another opportunity to discuss these issues further. Perhaps even talk more also, not just about today. We talked more about intimacy between husband and wives. We can also talk about a relationship between parents and children, and that's also important. So thank you very much, and we appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Those of you who are watching and who've been watching, we appreciate you taking the time to watch this show. As usual, we encourage you to share the video, subscribe to our our YouTube page, YouTube channel rather, and click that notification button so that you get updated automatically when we are on air, when we publish new content. And like our Facebook page, because we publish a lot of things there, and we'll notify you of what is happening. If you want to contribute to the knowledge that this kind of a knowledge bank where we're encouraging Africans from a variety of fields with different expertise to come and share some of that with the community. It's an opportunity to contribute and add value to others, as well as showcasing some of your skills. And because if you have something in you, your gift, your knowledge, your skills, wisdom, insight, you gotta put it out there. Don't just leave it for yourself. The more you put it out there, the better for you, because it adds value to other people's life, and who knows, it can also help you with your own goals, to achieve the goals that you've set for yourself. So thank you very much, everyone. Until next time, as usual, we say stay blessed and stay safe. Thank you.